Hello everyone, hope you are doing good. So y'all are joining with my 7th video, Sensation and Perception. So let's get started. So first let's see what is sensation. Sensation is a stimulation of sensory receptors and the transmission of sensory information to the central nervous system. We also can define sensation as the activation of the sense organ by a source of physical energy. So then what is perception? Perception is an active process in which sensations are organized and interpreted to form an inner representation of the world. So, perception is a sorting out, interpretation, analysis, and integration of stimuli by the sense organs and brain. Also, we can define perception as the set of processes by which an individual recognizes, organizes, and makes sense of the sensations one receives from the environmental stimuli. So we look at this picture. First we have stimulus energy, example light, sound, smell, etc. And then we have sensory receptors, example eyes, ears, nose, etc. So this stimulus energy through sensory receptors goes to our brain through a neural impulses. So stimulus energy and sensory receptors come under sensation, and neural impulses and brain comes under perception. So perception we can divide into two parts, top-down processing and bottom-up processing. So we'll see what are these. So first we have top-down processing which is influenced by expectation, sorted knowledge, context, and so on. So Gregory suggested that perception is indirect and also constructivist. Also he stated that perception is an active process that is based on experience and expectation. Many theorists prefer top-down theories, according to which perception is driven by high-level cognitive processes, existing knowledge, and the priori expectations that influence perception. The schemas, example past knowledge, expectation, and so on, make inferences about perceptual data. And then we have bottom-up processing which depends directly on external stimuli. So according to Gibson, perception is bottom-up, which means influenced by environmental stimuli, and perception is direct. Bottom-up theories describe approaches where perception starts with the stimuli whose appearance you take in through your eye, and perception happens when the light information is transported to your brain. Therefore, they are data-driven, which means stimulus-driven theory. Next, we have perceptual organization. So in early 90s, a group of German psychologists, including Kurt Kafka, Max Wertheimer, and Wolfgang Kohler, studied patterns or Gestalt. Here we have Gestalt Theory. Gestalt means when parts identified individually have different characteristics to the whole. Simply, Gestalt means organized whole. So, Gestalt theory states that the whole is something else than the sum of its parts. For example, when describing a tree, its parts are trunk, branches, leaves, perhaps blossoms or fruit. But when you look at the entire tree, you are not conscious of the parts, you are aware of the overall tree. So paths are secondary importance even though they can be clearly seen. So next we have principles of Gestalt perception. Some of the most basic perceptual processes can be described by a series of principles that focus on the ways we organize bits and pieces of information into meaningful wholes. So Gestalt psychologists argue that these principles exist because the mind has an innate disposition on perceived patterns in the stimulus based on certain rules. So there are a few principles. First we have law of similarity, law of presence, law of proximity, law of continuity, and law of closure. So first we'll see law of similarity. Law of similarity simply means similar things tend to appear grouped together. So grouping can occur in both visual and auditory stimuli. In this picture, you probably see the groupings of squares and circles rather than just a collection of squares and circles. Then we have law of Pragnance. Law of Pragnance simply means objects in the environment are seen in a way that makes them appear as simple as possible. So the word Pragnance is a German term meaning good figure. So the law of Pragnance is sometimes referred to as law of good figure or the law of simplicity. Also, law of Pragnance means tendency to make every psychological event simple, conscious, symmetrical, harmonious, and complete. So for example, you see the image as a series of overlapping circles rather than an assortment of curved, connected lines. And then we have law of proximity, which simply means things are near each other, seem to be grouped together. So elements that are close together will be perceived as a coherent objects. Example, in the image, the circles on the left appear to be part of one grouping, while those on the right appear to be part of another. Because the objects are close to each other, we group them together. And then we have law of continuity, which means points that are connected by straight or curving lines are seen in a way that follows the smoothest path. So there's a tendency in our perception to follow a direction to connect the elements in a way that makes them seem contiguous or flowing in a particular direction. So rather than seeing separate lines and angles, lines are seen as belonging together. Then we have law of closure. Simply means things are grouped together if they seem to complete some entity. So our brains often ignore contradictory information and fill in gaps in information. So there's a tendency in our perception to follow a direction to connect the elements in a way that makes them seem contiguous or following in a particular direction. So for example, in the image, you probably see the shape of a circle and rectangle because your brain fills in the missing gaps in order to create a meaningful image. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you need any help regarding notes and more facts, please do contact me via cascade.psychology@gmail.com. Watch my next video on social psychology. Thank you.